Welcome into Celtics Late Night. My name is Ben Vallis. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Alongside me, hot take Jake Eisenberg. Jake, an O2 hole as he cracks a beer, a necessary beer. It is late night after all, and we are mourning the Celtics season, I guess. I don't know. How you feeling, Jake?
Not great, Ben. not great, man. I've gone through a few stages today.
Can you walk us through it?
Yeah. I think shock when the C's were up like Grant hit the 3, up 9. And then shock from there, pretty much. Just it evaporated. It evaporated quickly in all the ways we know. We were like, we did a playback stream earlier as well. Like we depending on how many games we have left, guys can probably join that as well. But we knew it. It was pretty clear. Marcus Smart did the thing where he threw the ball like just on the ground.
Yeah,
that was a moment that was bad.
Coughed up his marbles.
Coughed up his marbles.
Is that the same?
But then hope starts to spring just a little bit eternal. I started researching all the teams that have come back from down 0-2, and I started to feel a little bit better. It's plenty of times.
You've just given us the full like emotional spectrum of your tragic Celtics fan, which is you and I. After a game like this, before we really get into it, a quick introduction, given this is only the second ever installment of Celtics Late Night. We are from the First to the Floor Celtics podcast, which is part of the CLNS network. We've been doing the pod for about 5 years. You can find it on all podcast platforms and on our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this show and you want more similar content, particularly in the off season, we do live trivia shows. We do who is this historic Celtic player kind of content. We really if anything, we thrive in the off season. So as much as I'm sad to see that the off season is apparently around the corner, it's a great time to subscribe to the podcast. So make sure that you subscribe to the First to the Floor YouTube channel, and of course all of the various content streams among CLNS as well. Jake, I guess some pre-recap notes as far as what we were hoping to see going into this game. Obviously the Heat, they win in the end, 111 to 105. Going back to Miami, up 2-0. The Celtics went double big to start the game. They did away with double big to start the second half. So quickly, this sort of tug of war between Joe and the players as to whether or not we should start Rob. Joe won that in the locker room at halftime. What were you hoping to see going into this one? And then how did the game play out relative to your expectations?
I had 3 keys to happiness for coming into the game. It was have less than 12 turnovers. It was shoot at least 43s and have 0 miscommunications where you leave Max Strus open instead of double teaming Cody Zeller. And the only one of those 3 that we nailed was, I don't think we had any disaster. The Marcus Smart turnover late was pretty bad. But that one in particular stuck out from game 1. And I feel like the defense was actually pretty good for the most part today. I thought it was a lot of tough shot making from the Heat, more so than anything else. I thought the defense was good. So those were the things I was looking for, and we didn't achieve really the 2 most important ones. The Heat have taken us away from what we like to do. When the Celtics are at their best, we're shooting threes. We shot 43 threes per game in the regular season. We shot 35 today. That's 8 below regular season. And everyone is talking about the clip about Spo saying, shut off the threes and they can't win. It kind of feels like we went a little Maury ball this year. Mm-hmm. And when people shut off the thing that we do well, we feel a little bit lost. And that feels especially true down the stretch of some of these games when we can't get to what we want, when we can't get to things that we're comfortable with. I don't even know what we're comfortable with at this point.
Not winning.
No, not at home at least. Not at home at least, man.
Well, say more on the Maury ball thing, because I know that's the Maury ball is a very sort of specific formula, which sort of is typically predicated on 1 big, 4 smalls, for lack of a better term, or at least 4 3-point shooters drive and kick to the corner. it didn't necessarily feel to me like that was the lone formula for the Celtics in this game. So say more on the Morey ball thing, because I'm struggling to grasp it a little bit.
It's been all threes and rim stuff, and I think it's encapsulated with the kind of play that Tatum has been. And this is not to say Tatum was bad today, because I think he was the only one that really him and Rob feel like the only two guys that really turned up today. Maybe a little bit of Grant as well, but it's threes or it's at the rim, and if those things aren't happening, and it's kind of a disaster. If you start missing threes, or if you're not generating threes, then you're in a bad place. And it's called Morey ball because Morey famously, created this team with James Harden surrounded by shooters, small ball, Clint Capella, and famously shot, 27 missed threes in a row in the conference finals, no less. Game 7. Hopefully we get to a game 7, and I would love to miss 27 threes in a row in a game 7 at this point. That would be great. But
just to be there.
Yeah, just to be there. But yeah, it feels like the Heat, on the other hand, it's a different guy. And that's what's been frustrating to me, I think, in the playoffs as a whole, and more so in the second couple of rounds. Like, what was great about this team throughout the year, it was like it felt like a few different guys could go off. We had the stretch where Derek White was a borderline all-star. He'd just pop off for 18, 6 and 6. Or Malcolm Brogdon goes off for 24 on 16 shots. Horford can go for 6 for 7 from 3. It kind of feels like the Jays have to be playing at an elite level right now, and we haven't been able to get both of them going at a really high level in the series in particular so far.
I mean, Tatum was elite in this game. I was so ready, just as I was after game 1, ready for the Marcus Smart is God narrative. I was ready for like the Tatum is seizing the championship narrative after this game if they didn't piss it away going into the fourth quarter up 8 or 9 or whatever they were, where we'll get to like the Grant Jimmy Butler thing, but you saw Jimmy Butler come in and you just knew that our lead wasn't enough. I was ready for that to be the narrative. Yeah, unfortunately, both Jays can't seem to play at an elite level at the same time in this particular series. What we're going to do for everyone watching live, and if you're listening to the podcast on the First to the Floor podcast feed after the fact, you can email us in response at firsttothefloor18@gmail.com. We're going to go through the pain rankings, which is classic us. It's like the therapeutic response to the game. We're going to rattle off all of the most painful moments of this game.
Yeah, we can rattle them off, and then we can rank them.
Yeah, exactly. So we need your help. If you're watching in the chat or if you're listening later, let us know how you would rank all of these moments. So I'm going to run through a couple, Jake. You'll run through a couple, and unfortunately, I'm sorry to say we have a very, very long list of painful moments from this game. Starting with the Jalen disaster class, which may very well be up the top of the list because it may very well be ranked number 1. Terrible in this game. Turnovers, missed shots, blown defensive assignments, deer in the headlights look, just like almost a completely off game for Jaylen Brown. That's first on our pain rankings list. Al Horford, Jake, you've put Al washed ? On the list. More specifically, like Al Horford can't hit a 3, struggling to defend Bam Adebayo, and really like struggling to assert himself in this game where we're having the like, man, I'm glad we've got Al Horford. Oh, isn't Al Horford amazing at 37 years old or 36 years old? Like, we haven't been able to think that way in a while. Anything to add to those 2 points before you move on to a few of your points there, Jake?
I almost feel like it's not Al's fault because he was so good in the Sixers series despite missing shots. It's really unfortunate, man. Al used all of his makes. He became like one of the league's best 3-point shooters for the entire season, and he cannot hit anything. And like, it's so easy to simplify. And sorry, look, chat, I'm just going to bounce around. My brain just goes.
We're not in a good way, folks.
Not in a good way.
Not in a good way.
But like, a huge reason why this team was so good and won 57 games and had the second. This is the thing as well. Don't sleep on the seas.
Thank you, Jacob.
I thought that, game 6, Tatum, that was leaving it late. You know what's really leaving it late? Going down 0-2 at home, going on the road down 0-2. That's really going back against the wall. But
He's just challenging himself at the moment.
yeah,
That's all this is. That's all this is.
it's just like playing, Super Smash Bros. On very hard when you've done everything and you're playing with Jigglypuff. It's just like I've done everything. I've done every other option at this point, and May as well. He just
You took the
hasn't.
words right out of my mouth.
But the Celtics were so good on offense because Al Horford was like an elite shooter, and that completely opens the game up. The drive and kick game works because Al Horford's an elite shooter. They can't even get into their drive and kick game. Like, yeah, they're missing shots, and the Heat are kind of shutting that stuff down. But they can't even get into it because they're sagging off Al Horford because he can't make a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And the paint's clogged, and then it's just this self-fulfilling process. And then we're back to like, how do we adjust? And the adjustment was Rob, and we didn't get to that. But Al being washed is a joke because I think he's one of the best 36-year-olds ever to play the game, probably at this point.
Maybe ever to live. The greatest 36-year-old of all time. Peaked
He's up there.
36.
Well, you're 36, so what are you? You must be a close second.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an elite shooter in the NBA, and also 7 foot tall. So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that Al Horford is a better 36-year-old than I am. What else have we got on the
You're
pain
a close
rankings?
second to me. You're a close second to me, man.
Thank you, sir. What else do we have on the pain rankings?
Bloody hell, where to begin, mate? Caleb Martin, dude. I cannot believe. Sup, Jimmy? Look, man,
Jimmy.
I think Jimmy's here to see if we can do the impossible and spin this into a good time.
It's not going to happen. It can't be done. It cannot be done. Folks in the chat, if you've got a positive spin, let us know. We'd love you to alter the trajectory of this show. I don't think it's possible. Sorry, Jake, I interrupted you.
No, man. Like we're look. I'm having a little bit of fun just because I've got this whiskey apple soda thing, and it's going all right. But the Caleb Martin game, like he's become good. You can't just think this is a guy that was cut by Charlotte and barely made the NBA. At this point, he is like a legitimate like NBA wing that like the Memphis Grizzlies really could have used to beat the Lakers. Like this Heat team, and is it black magic? Is it the stars are just aligned in a certain way every year in April and May to make these dudes play like way, way, way above their head? I don't know what it is, but like Caleb Martin having 26 points on 16 shots and like hitting some stuff. We're still trying to figure out what we're allowed to say on this late night show. Hitting some stuff. Like really good defense. Like I thought in both games 1 and 2, the Celtics were like on the brink of kind of breaking it open, and the Heat role players, not even Jimmy, it was the role players, whether it was Strus hitting some stuff or Lowry in the first game. Today, it was Caleb Martin. And that was, I thought, a strength of the Celtics this year. We don't have that boost right now. So the Caleb Martin thing causes me a lot of pain because it feels like the Celtics were that team. Like Grant almost was that guy today. Grant was that guy last year. We're just missing that spark, that juice, and that causes me pain, man.
And like with the depth that we haven't got one guy who can be, this pains me to say, the quote unquote, where's our Caleb Martin, right? Like there's so many of them potentially, like beyond the Jays, we've got this laundry list of guys who could be that Caleb Martin for us on any given night. And it's like, we're just completely back to where we were last year, where it's like we live and die basically by Tatum, sometimes by the Jays as a tandem, but like we cannot expect anyone else to step up and give us that role player punch. So to see Caleb Martin do that with the comparatively like lack of depth from the Heat perspective, to see their role players be as assertive and forceful and impactful as they are, Boston 11, absolutely. If only it were a 14-game series, then we'd have this in the bag. So the Caleb Martin game definitely makes the pain rankings. To rattle off a few more late offensive rebounds. Sorry,
I was going to say that you made a good point there. It's quite interesting to me is that we're so reliant on the Jays, and if they don't play at this elite level, we lose, right? But you go back to the bubble, the original in this trilogy of Heat Celtics, right? And I think a lot of Celtics fans, myself included, have rationalized that loss as Daniel Tice, who I love, starting center. Shemi Ojale was like sixth man. Kemba Walker's knees had turned into Play-Doh. Like the roster around the Jays in the bubble was nowhere near as good as the roster now. But it just feels like no matter, and this is the NBA, right? You look at Jokic, you look at Jimmy, it's like as good as your role players can be, you need your stars to just like step up to this level. Unless you're the Heat, because then you have black magic and your role players play like stars at all times, apparently.
Apparently.
And
Stars in their role,
yeah,
at least.
it's crazy that we're 3 years later and we're like Groundhog Day in this thing.
I maintain that one of the greatest moments of the regular season was the realization that we were going to avoid the Heat in the playoffs. Only through, I guess, again, to use that term, Jake, some black magic to find our way back to the Heat. Like some sort of like destined lovers, whatever the opposite of that is, right? Like they're here to destroy us, and there's nothing that we can do to avoid them. It's like we're stuck in their tractor beam and they're pulling us in, and they can't be avoided. It's truly devastating. Grant waking up Jimmy Butler is next on my pain rankings.
Okay, where are you on Grant's like culpability in all this? Like, do you think it was an actual like thing?
So again, we were doing a watch party for this game, playback.tv/first to the floor. Sign up to our playback room there. We have a lot of fun watching the games. I think there's a pretty short rope there remaining as far as like how many more games we're going to stream in this particular season. We were celebrating at that moment, like, yes, Grant.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
Get into him, because it was at a moment where it was an uptick for the Celtics as far as like scoring and productivity and getting stops. And it felt like that was an extension of that moment. Like, Grant's awesome. He's being really impactful. We're so glad to see him on the court after many, many back-to-back DNPs. And now he's getting into Jimmy Butler's face. And that's just an extension of like all of his impact on the court. Unfortunately, that seemed to quote unquote wake up Jimmy Butler. And he came in and ripped our souls out of our bodies. But Jimmy Butler, like, just to end the thought there, would have done that anyway. He absolutely would have done that anyway.
That's the point, is that because I looked it up, I was like, okay, I'm looking up Jimmy's fourth quarter stats in the playoffs, and he averages 9.6 per game in the fourth quarter in the playoffs on 50% from the field. And what did he do tonight? He went 4 for 8 from the field, 50%. Like, it was just, this is what Jimmy does, dude. We can be like, oh no, he woke Jimmy up. Jimmy senses these moments, dude. Yeah, Jimmy, like, right on point, Jimmy. Jimmy senses these moments, and we have like, it's blasphemous to even compare him to MJ, but because of like who Jimmy is more broadly. And I don't think we've seen a guy that really has, like, he's like the inverse of Joel Embiid, where Joel Embiid in the regular season is literally unstoppable, dropped 50 points on the Celtics in a really important game. Fast forward to game 7, he's a 5 for 18 while the other player on the other team drops 50.
I miss those days, man.
I think a lot of people want to be like, well, why is Tatum not sensing these moments? Why is Tatum that XYZ? And Tatum's 20, and no one wants to hear it right now. I get it. But what we really need is a time machine. We need Doc to fire up a DeLorean and like bring back Tatum from like
Doc Rivers.
Well, we can talk about Doc Rivers in a bit if we want.
Okay.
But Tatum 3 years from now has the skill improvements, the mental awareness of all these failures. Like, Jimmy's 33. Go back and look at what Jimmy was doing 8 years ago. You know, different guy.
2017 wasn't 8 years ago, but that many years ago, he might have been losing to the Celtics in a Chicago Bulls uniform after going up 2-0 alongside Rajon Rondo against those Celtics, where I was there. I was there for those 2 games in Boston. I've got a little footage from my camera phone from when I attended those games at TD Garden. I've got a photo of me and my wife being very sad here after realizing we were going to fall down 0-2 in that series. And obviously the Celtics came back. This doesn't feel that way because Jimmy Butler is older and wiser. He is playing with Bam Adebayo. Eric Spoelstra is at the helm. But I guess like skewing positive for a second, like the Celtics have fallen down 0-2. And
against Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
Against Jimmy Butler.
And we will get to who is this series Gerald Green. But we're going to finish our pain rankings first, Jake. So, we got to Grant waking up Jimmy. Let's rattle off a few more. And folks in the chat, like, let's hear your entries for the pain rankings because it was a painful game. Like, there's got to be more than what we were capable of coming up with. Gabe Vincent's step back deep 2 over like a falling Jason Tatum to ice the game. If you think about like the player archetype of Gabe Vincent and like who he is in the league, his relevance in the league versus Jason Tatum, like first team All NBA, 4th in MVP voting, and like the image that when I go to sleep tonight and I close my eyes is going to be Jason Tatum falling out of the bottom camera view while Gabe Vincent just like splashes a 2 over his face to ice the game. That's what happens in a Celtics Heat series, unfortunately, Jake. That's going to be pretty up there in the pain rankings.
What hurts a lot about that one is that I don't think Tatum was. I think he could have played that a lot better. He can't give that clean of a look, so that one does hurt. I respect the hell out of Gabe Vincent though, captain of Nigeria, like a Nigerian Patty Mills.
Yeah. Yep.
What else you got for me? That one hurt. That one hurt. What else you got for me?
I'm stunned. Like, apologies to everyone watching this. Like, we're doing our best. Smart late game turnover. We talked about him coughing up his
that
fumbles.
one was.
What about winning the third quarter, 31-22, heading into the fourth, up 8, and you just knew. Like, tell me if I'm wrong. You just knew that wasn't enough of a lead heading into the fourth quarter. You could see it on the faces of everyone on the Heat. They were smiling at each other, down 8 in a playoff game in the conference finals, because they knew that wasn't enough and they were going to be able to come back. Everyone knew. And that, that there were some criticisms online on Twitter of the Garden crowd not being as into this game as they maybe should have been. They knew. They all knew.
We have PTSD, dude. Yeah. We all have PTSD and we can feel it happening. It's just like the crowd has like turned into this team, which is what happens. And when it doesn't feel safe, the crowd doesn't feel safe. Like I was in the building for game 2 of the Brooklyn Nets series last year. And actually, I literally tried to wear the shirt that I got from that game today because I thought we needed it.
I've done all that stuff. I had the lucky undies on today. I drank out of my Jaylen Brown coffee mug. I pulled out all the stops. I can't get it done clearly, so I've done. But like the crowd, the Celtics went down 17 points in game 2 against the Nets, and it felt like it almost energized the crowd, and it built and built. They had never lost faith. Whereas with this team, and this is the weight of expectations. Like as good as that team was last year, maybe that's what they should do next year: is play really bad until January, and then play really well for the second half. Because the expectations weren't that high coming into the playoffs last year. The expectations were like, yeah, they could beat whoever, but like, they could lose to the Nets. I know, CLNS John Zanis was very, very worried about the Nets coming into last season. It's playoffs. Maybe that's because like the expectations changes the way you experience this stuff, and it hurts. Like, and it sucks. Honestly, it sucks. Honestly, expectations suck, and this is why we need a title so we can just win and enjoy our lives again. Because shoot, Nanny. Thank you for welcoming us down to Nice 85. Yeah, what do they say? Like disappointment equals reality, expectations minus reality, or reality minus expectations, or something like that. And
I'm not a scientist, man. I don't know, but it hurts.
in a season where championship is the expectation, you're 99% likely to experience just total despair and pain, which is the mood right now. We continue to trudge through the pain rankings, Jake, and there are more. 2-for-1 to close the second quarter. Gabe Vincent pull up 3. Tatum rushes a pull up 3. Jimmy hits the deep 2 fadeaway. 5-0 run going into the half. If we weren't positive that we were going to lose at that point, I don't know. Where were you at that point, Jake?
Oh man, because this is good math, but we were up 1, and then we were down 1 in the span of like 35 seconds. Up 1, then down 4. Up 1, then down 4. Chat, I'm really bad at math. I failed geometry in year 10. Had to go to summer school. Like, never been a strong suit. But yeah, like, you feel good going into halftime, and like feels like so many times, even this playoffs, but like, again, it reared its head. It felt like a lot of stuff that's been happened again tonight, and eventually it caught them. And you close the quarter strong, but no, Gabe Vincent hits this like sick pull up, like 30-footer, with 34 seconds left, and Jason Tatum tries to answer down the other end, and Tatum does not have range. Like, as good of I would trust him taking clean looks from the 3-point line, but like once it gets to 30 feet, 31, 32 feet, I don't trust Tatum to be able to hit deep shots. He hit one in the Hawks series, but like, it's not his thing. And just, we suck at 2-for-1s. We suck at clock management in those moments. It's like, just get one good shot.
Yeah.
That one hurt.
I was trying to find a way to segue this. Like, speaking of one good shot, that doesn't really work.
I got a good shot for you in a second.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. Let's take a brief moment to hear from our sponsor, FanDuel. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs, because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. I love FanDuel. We're going to get to a great bet for next game with Jake in a second. They've got great promotions every day, a safe and secure app. You get paid instantly, which is actually rare for a lot of gambling apps and platforms. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sports book. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 plus in select states. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued as a non-withdrawable bonus bet that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, or Virginia. 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas. Call 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Gambling Help line ma.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming or visit www.1800gambler.net in West Virginia. Jake, an incredible U.S. geography tour there as we rattle off all the states there. Amazing.
I have to write those states out. You're a legend. You've absolutely nailed that. FanDuel.
Yes, please.
I've actually won a good chunk of money. Jimmy and the boys on the Garden Report talking about if you bet on the Celtics, bet on who the Celtics are playing in the playoffs, it's been very lucrative. I bet on the Heat to win game 1. I was 100% sure they were going to win game 1. And then the Celtics went up 9, and I went to pee during the live stream, and I called FanDuel.
Oh, that's what you were doing.
Yeah, and put another cheeky bet on. And it's an emotional hedge, but it's something that I do when I'm like pretty sure that something bad's going to happen. So what I would recommend if you're a Celtics fan, has a bit of cash that you are willing to lose. Responsibly. The odds for the Celtics have been crazy the whole playoffs all year. And I can get to a point on that in a second. But if you were to put $100 on the Celtics on FanDuel to win the series, on the Heat to win the series, you come back with 160. The odds are still like way, 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 way closer than you would expect of a team that just lost two at home going back on the road. So, like, if you have no more faith, if you want to, emotionally hedge yourself, so if they do come back, you lose and it's a lose $100. At least the Celtics are going to the finals. But a bet that I actually believe in for tomorrow's game between the Nuggets and the Lakers, Lakers -5.5. Davis to have 20 plus points and Davis to have 12 plus rebounds. Davis had a kind of a shocker yesterday, and Davis has been really good off bad games going into the next game. So I would go AD plus 20 points, plus 12 rebounds, and the Lakers -5.5. The Lakers have been good at home. The Nuggets have been really bad on the road all season. They turned up in that Suns series, but I think that had a lot more to do with KD and Booker playing like 45 minutes of pop and just being run off the court. Lakers are going to bounce back. LeBron's going to be ready to go. He knows what's at stake here. Talk about feeling the moment. LeBron's going to have these guys ready to go. So I would definitely back that parlay, and that's plus 291 for tomorrow. I would have hit the parlay I gave out yesterday if the Celtics had actually won the game. I had Tatum 30 plus and Tatum 10 plus rebounds. I thought Tatum did everything he could. But so on the Celtics being the betting favorites all year long, every game this playoffs, the Celtics have been the heavy favorites. And Celtics fans have been so confident in their team. So confident in their team, and shocked anytime they lose a game and furious anytime they lose a game. And I actually think that we've been brainwashed a little bit by the media, by advanced analytics, by Zach Lowe, by plenty of people out there. Zach Lowe specifically, a lot of people out there that have convinced us propaganda on the Celtics. Boston, we're guilty. We're probably guilty of brainwashing ourselves, but like,
oh yeah,
there's been so many like big markers that the Celtics are this elite team that is a cut above the rest of the league, and we've been pretty consistent that like we don't think the Celtics are guaranteed to win the title. We still think that the chances it's more likely than not that they don't win the title. But the way that everybody talks about the Celtics, it's felt like we should win. And people in my life are like, "Oh, the Celtics were favorites. How'd they lose?" They haven't been that good. Like the Celtics had the best point differential in the NBA this year, but it was like one of the lowest point differentials of like someone in the number one spot in years. So like, which speaks to the parity of the NBA right now. But like, I feel like Celtics fans have been duped a little bit to expect and like have these expectations of a team that's like the Golden State Warriors, and really that's like on the same level as like several other contenders.
Yeah, that November was incredible.
It's November.
Like you go for a job, and in the interview, you're incredible. You wear your best suit. You get a haircut. You lead with like 1000% the best of yourself, like your best wins, while completely leaving out any negative in your life, any poor performance at a prior job. You lead with your absolute best, and they hire you based off that performance in the job interview. You get past your probation period, maybe it's 3 months, and then you really relax. And that's kind of like what we've seen with the Celtics this year. Unfortunately, they've had really good stretches. I don't know. As I say that, it's like they finished with the top two offense and defense. So it's like we maybe can't critique them too heavily there. Are you sort of saying this, Jake, to start to begin the grief stage, like the acceptance, like, okay, they lost, but it wasn't that bad? Like, is that the angle you're going for here?
The mental gymnastics. We never had a chance, man. We never had a chance. It was all fake. Living in a simulation, moving to the mountains. All of these things are kind of coming to the forefront of my mind at this point.
We haven't even finished the pain rankings. I think it's probably time for the chat to let us know like the top 3 of the pain rankings. Like obviously we've kind of stumbled our way through them, but like I think there are a few glaring, obvious top 3s here. Just to rattle the rest of them off: the Heat 24-9 run in the fourth quarter. That might be number one, low key. Neither Jay had a field goal in the fourth quarter. But like Tatum was incredible and like running the offense. They called it out on the broadcast. Like, yeah, he didn't get a field goal attempt up, but like he was like any field goal attempt that was put up, it was, you know, Tatum was responsible for that look. And then a Marcus Smart no-show, I think is last for me on the pain rankings here, Jake. Like Smart was incredible in game one. And just like if you look across his stats and obviously just the eye test watching the game, there wasn't any moment where it was like, oh man, Marcus Smart, like we're so lucky, the longest tenured Celtic. We're so glad he really shows up in the playoffs. We're so lucky to have this guy. That like just was not a thing in this game. And for a must-win game, and yes, it was a must-win, Jake, for Smart to just like lurk in the shadows like that is really, really disappointing. So that ranks highly in the pain rankings as well.
Yeah, and look, we felt it. I thought that was like one of the good things that Joe did was go away. I don't know who the hell Josh is.
Josh Missoula.
Josh Missoula. Maybe we should hire him. Was that he went away from Marcus for a large majority of the second half, it felt like. So what, Marcus Smart played 32 minutes, and of those 32 minutes, he only played 6 darts, about 50-50. Damn it. I was hoping my eyes would have backed that one up. But yeah, no, it felt like late, especially in the fourth quarter, that he went away from Marcus, and I thought that was the right call. But then Brogdon, like, it was a no-win game, it felt like, from some of those spots. I don't think Malcolm, Derek, or Brogdon. Derek was probably the best of the three, but you have to play with aggression, and Derek wasn't doing that. But like you go back to game 6 in Philly, and I thought Marcus Smart maybe his best game as a Celtic, and we needed a gritty, game-changing performance at times, and that hurts. Yeah, we need our two guys to be making $600 million to be good. One of them was really good. One of them was really bad.
This isn't on our run sheet, so I don't want to spring this on you, but
spring it, baby.
Are you wavering at all on the like definitely Supermax Jalen, like that we have the ability to do so because he's made all NBA? Like, are you wavering at all on the notion of just definitely doing that?
Man, these are the types of days that make you feel like this.
Right? Maybe the wrong day to ask the question, to be honest, but it does beg the question.
The question you have to ask yourself is, what's the alternative? Because even if you can't sign and trade Jalen to the Supermax, to whoever said that in the chat. So you can't sign and trade Jalen this offseason because if you sign him to the Supermax, you can't trade him. That's just how it works. And if you do trade him, any team you trade him to is going to have the same problem the Celtics have if he had not made it all NBA, is that he will be a free agent after next year's season. And if he hasn't committed, which he can't technically commit because he won't be able to, you can do the wink, wink. You know, I know Atlanta's like always been the team. Like if Jalen does a wink, wink with Atlanta, that's like, you know, something that pops up. But I just find it hard to believe that you're going to find a better alternative than the version of Jalen and Jason. Okay, DJ Daniel in the chat. What's your Jalen Brown trade? You know, like bring in DeJounte Murray and DeAndre Hunter. If you think that's going to fix your problems, then like I don't know what to tell you. It's absolutely not. There's no one on the Hawks. There's not a single player on the Hawks that's going to put the Celtics in a better place than they're in right now. So you want to do revisionist history and say we should have traded for Kevin Durant. Fine. Doesn't help you now. Trey, good luck winning the Heat won it was crazy about the Heat. They won a playoff game against they lost a playoff game against the Hawks, who typically the Heat just absolutely dominate. But like just one game. Absolutely just one game.
Now, I have just been told by my mother-in-law that she's dropping my daughter off to my house, in which I am currently alone, in 20 minutes. So that's how much time we have left on Celtics Late Night.
I saw your face be like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife is out and she's like, are you going to be all right? Like she's coming around in 20 minutes. Like you're going to need to be there. You can't be
Yeah.
up in the attic live streaming about the Celtics when your daughter gets home. So let's start to wrap this up with a few questions. We kind of
Yes.
touched on it. I've got some a late game, post game rather, interview with Grant Williams to play, and then we can talk about like whether or not like it was Grant who kind of like fucked up by waking up Jimmy Butler there.
What were you saying to Jimmy after you hit the three early in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, I think he said something and I just responded. You know, for me, I'm a competitor. I'm going to battle. He got the best of me tonight, and at the end of the day, it's out of respect because I'm not going to run away from it. My mom always taught me that you get, and my dad as well, you get your ass kicked. You don't come back home until you come battle again. And if you either come back before you die or you go back and you go get a win. And I'm not willing to die in this finals. I'm ready to get a win, ready to come back and come into game 3 with a better mentality. I know this team is as well. So at the end of the day, tonight's tonight. We got to focus in, let this shit hurt. But at the end of the day, we got to come in tomorrow and really focus in on what's next.
Grant, did you get a heads up about playing tonight? And if not, what do you think led to that decision?
I'm ready for whatever role coach asks of me. No matter what's said to me, no matter if I don't play, no matter if I play, I'm ready if Joe needs me. And tonight I came out with an edge, mental, physical, and I'm going to continue to do that whether I'm playing or not, and I'm going to be there for my teammates. And in terms of like the strategy behind it, everything else, I have no idea. But for me, I'm just coming out here to try and help this team win, make sure that's the number one priority and goal.
Great.
Yeah,
Jimmy
Jimmy obviously thrives in like these situations, like over the course of his career. Is that something I know it's an emotional game. Like, are you thinking about something like that when you're on these interactions? Like, you don't want to kind of light him up, or do you?
None of that. You expect to beat the best. No matter if I lit him up or not, he's going to do that. And for me, it's just a matter of understanding that, yeah, sure, you did poke a bear, quote unquote, and how are you going to respond? Because for me, he made some tough shots, a battle, and I'm going to keep battling. You know, he's going to have to make every single tough shot the rest of the series, and I'm not going to turn and look otherwise because I respect him as a motherfucking player. He's a great man, great person, great human being, known him for a while. But at the end of the day, this team, we have a real decision to make. And that decision is going to be, are we going to come back and really set the tone the rest of this year and really make a statement? Or are we going to come out and lay down? And I don't think this team is built for laying down.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
The audio censorship guy earning his yearly paycheck on that Grant Williams interview alone. Amazing. We've talked about whether or not like Grant was at fault for waking up Jimmy Butler, and for those who are joining later, like the general consensus was like, no, Jimmy Butler's going to do that anyway. And it was just actually kind of refreshing to see one of our guys show some fight towards Jimmy. So let's pivot to the coaching a little bit. And I struggle with this, Jake, because of, you know, the circumstances under which Joe Mazzulla has like come into this. You know, it's pretty brutal. Like, yes, like we had candidates, but alternative candidates to hire in the coaching role other than Joe Mazzulla with everything that happened with Ime Udoka, right? So like we are entitled to throw blame out there, right? But at the same time, he was made the head coach, interim or otherwise, with like 3 days to go before the training camp there, and he's been thrown into this really difficult situation here. How much do you blame Joe Mazzulla, I guess is what I'm getting at, Jake, as far as like how much of a bed shitting this has been, and with only waiting until this game to throw Grant Williams into the playoff rotation? Like, where are you at with Joe right now?
Yeah, like using the Grant thing to frame this. Game 3 against the Hawks, Grant comes in, has a huge game, like 4 for 4 from 3. And I, from that moment, was like, he has to be in the rotation because it looked like he was still able to recapture and play the way that he played in last year's playoffs. I thought we saw it again in the Sixers series in flashes, in game 3 again, in Philadelphia. Really good defense on Embiid, and he was buried again after that.
After having his face like completely flattened, pancaked by Joel Embiid.
What I'm saying.
There's no one on the Heat that could do that kind of damage to his face.
Well, it's like he's in it. He's like diving on the floor. He's willing to get his face fattened. He comes back on the court. We have him mic'd up being like, I'm a competitor. And like as corny and as lame as Grant can be, like he believes this stuff. And he's willing to put his body on the line, and like that Tommy Point, like Boston grit stuff. I think Grant actually personifies a lot of the time.
Yeah, totally.
And Joe just completely excommunicating him when he really showed that he had it throughout the playoffs, I thought was a mistake. And he was Then the Garden Report talked about it today. Joe's been a step slow in this series every step of the way. And you can get away with it against the Hawks because you're just so much more talented. And against the Sixers, partly because Doc's not that great and Embiid and Harden are not perfect as well. It's insane that the Heat are doing this. It just reminds me of how insane it is for me to wrap my head around what they're doing considering the year they've had. But he's been a step slow. Like we shouldn't have seen double bigs again after it didn't work in game one. We should have seen Grant in game one. Like he's notoriously good at defending Bam. And like, I've been a Joe defender, but ouch.
Hot take, like it is objectively beautiful what the Heat are doing. Like it's kind of like 30 for 30 worthy. The fact that they are like quite potentially going to the finals, given the season they had, given the play-in game they had against the Hawks, like that's possibly happening. It does give me some hope that like the Celtics can strike back. Winning on the road hasn't necessarily been a challenge for these Celtics, and like there has to be a bed shitting for those Heat lurking in the shadows, right? Like it has to be there for the taking for the Celtics in some degree. How can they like? I know this is pretty much a moot point by now, but like how can the Heat have had that bad of a season, that bad of a play-in entry game, and be so successful? And they even shot really poorly in that Knicks series. Like, is there not an inevitable bed shitting in this series for the Heat? Like, or is it gone?
No. Look, it would not shock me if the Celtics tied this up 2-2. It really wouldn't.
It would kind of shock me at this point. If I'm being honest.
It really wouldn't. I like. They're very beatable. Both of these games were winnable. So like, it just wouldn't shock me. I would be, I think the Heat are going to come back to Boston up 3-1, but like, it would not shock me if the Celtics come back 2-2. It really wouldn't. But look, going back to Joe, right? Like, I mean, these circumstances, man, it was not his fault. Ime turned into a horny bastard and fumbled one of the best situations in the NBA. And now he gets to coach Jalen Green, Kevin Porter, and player X with the 4th pick. Congratulations, dude. You thought you were mad at Jalen missing off-ball stuff. At least Jalen plays defense. Jalen Green doesn't even know what an off-ball defense is at this point. At least Jalen Brown tries from time to time.
Yep.
Like, Joe to come in and then you lose Will Hardy and Damon Stoudemire in the middle of the year. Like, it's a terrible, terrible situation. So I've been a Joe defender just because I think it's an unfair situation. And I feel like coaching is not that important in the NBA relative to other sports. But the problem is when the gap keeps getting bigger and bigger in a matchup like with Spo, you can run into some problems, and he's just like been a step behind.
The thing is, if this was the Nick Nurse coached Celtics or the Coach Bud coached Celtics, like I don't necessarily feel confident that we'd be in a different situation as far as where this series is at. Like Spo is just that good. And the Heat are just so disciplined. Like they know their basketball principles and they stick to them. They have an immediate awareness of how to respond in any situation. Like say they've got a play drawn up and the first 3 options are taken away. As a team, they have a collective awareness of the 4th option and the 5th option, and then boxing out and then transition defense. And like it's almost 2014 Spursian in that like it's sort of regardless of the personnel, their principles are so well defined and so well propagated throughout the roster that like they're sort of unbeatable in a way, which is crazy. And doesn't bode well for the remainder of the series for the Celtics, but like you kind of got to respect it a little bit.
Oh, I have unbelievable respect for these guys, dude. Like I hate the Heat too, Elise. I really do. But
I hate all 29 other teams.
No,
the Celtics.
Like I don't think I respect anyone more in the NBA right now than Jimmy, Spo, Curry's in there, and then like I guess technically LeBron. But like those are my guys. Jokic isn't there yet. What Jimmy does to elevate this team around him, and what Spo's done year after year after year after year after year. I just saw a comment here about, is it Spo or is it the Celtics, fumbling the ball? Like, okay, was it the Bucks fumbling the ball? Was it the Knicks fumbling the ball? Like, the Knicks and the Bucks were way better than the Heat all year long. And so I respect it. I don't know how we would would the Heat trade Spo for Jaylen Brown? I don't think so.
No, definitely not.
No.
He's like a top 5 asset in the league.
Cool, because remember when Brad Stevens was doing all when he was coaching, I think Chris Mannix had the famous tweet, and it was like, how many players do you get through before you draft a Brad Stevens? It's like Giannis, Steph, LeBron, and because it was a poll on Twitter, it was like Brad or another player, and Brad was like overwhelmingly one of those guys. And
did we traded Doc Rivers for a first round pick, which if you look back now, was it a first round pick? Maybe it was a second round pick, but still
anything you can get for Doc Rivers is a win.
Crazy high value given, what the asset looks like now, not to de-personify Doc Rivers by calling him the asset, but you know what I mean? We have to start wrapping up here.
Yeah. You wrap up when we got it, and then we'll get out of here.
I could sense my mother-in-law approaching in her car. It's the smell.
Would you? It's crazy because whatever happened with Brad, he was one of the best coaches in the league, but he's been so good as a GM. It's like he can't do both jobs, but so we don't have him. But can he come down and coach Game 3? I don't know, because I feel like bloody Joe Mazzulla tried his Peyton Pritchard thing, and anyway, go on.
How legal would it be for Joe Mazzulla to have an earpiece that he wears that's just like Brad Stevens in his ear, just pulling the strings on the puppet? I don't are we?
I don't know.
Crazy to think that we're at that point. Here's a less crazy question. Who would you prefer coaching the Celtics next year? Second year Joe Mazzulla or Nick Nurse?
I mean, what is it? It's not even a question. Nick Nurse, dude.
But really, because if say we find ourselves meeting the Heat again, like I said, are we not just Joe's got us this far? Is Nick Nurse getting us over the Spo hump?
There's no way to know, I guess, but Nick Nurse has done some crazy stuff on the court, and I feel like I hate Nick Nurse, but Nick Nurse is willing to get on the court, impact a play in the bubble, to hurt the Celtics in Game 4 or something. I would. The thing with Joe is we don't know if he's going to get better. It would make perfect sense. Second year head coach will get better, has a much better bench. Whether whoever he brings in, whether it's Monty Williams, who's definitely not going to be on the bench, but there's all these guys available that could be on the bench, and that makes for a better Joe Mazzulla experience. We don't know for sure. We don't know for sure. Okay, Mr. Potato Salad. Mr. Potato Salad. Joe Mazzulla got this team 57 wins. How many wins did Ime Udoka get this team? Jason Tatum just had his best year as a Celtic. Jaylen Brown has had his best year as a Celtic. Derek White just had his best year as an NBA player. Joe Mazzulla had a good year. The playoffs are a different beast. Absolutely different beast. That's what it is.
Anything else, Jake, before we wrap up? Some people in the chat are saying, why are we wrapping up so soon? So, what this is only our second show on Celtics Late Night, but what we want to be typical for this show is spend an hour talking about the game and then basically spend another hour just hanging out, shooting the breeze, talking about favorite all-time Celtics teams, talking about Jordan Crawford's amazing run in 2014? I should know this, 2013, 2014 as player of the week, stuff like that. But unfortunately, I've got some familial obligations this afternoon that I have to get to. Any final takeaways, Jake? Where do you go from here as someone who quote unquote covers the Celtics, and then where do you go as the Celtics? What now?
Gonna have another beer, go for a
It's a good
walk,
start.
go for a walk, jump in the freezing cold ocean, which is about 12 degrees Celsius at the moment, which is about 40-ish degrees Fahrenheit. Cleanse myself of this. Wake up, watch the Nuggets game, hope the Lakers lose, and then hope springs eternal, Ben. One game at a time.
Oh, you're selling me, Jake.
Celtics in 6 is not dead.
Technically, still possible.
Not dead. Not dead yet. Let's go.
All right. I guess
What
that's
do you got?
as well.
How do you-
I'm going. So I live in Sydney. I'm going into the city tonight to see Regurgitator, incredible '90s Australian band. They're playing their seminal album, Unit, in at the Roundhouse in Randwick. So that's what I'm going to be watching intently and trying my hardest not to think about the Celtics. Yeah, I mean, back against the World Celtics, right, Jake? Like that's the best version of the Celtics. You would have thought the prospect of going down 0-2 at home against the Eric Spoelstra, Jimmy Butler Heat would be the epitome of back against the wall. No, apparently not. Apparently it's going back into Miami. Beautiful, warm, by the way, welcoming Miami, where our guys should be very comfortable to win 2 games in a row. Who knows? Look, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for joining us, folks, in the chat. We see you. We read all your comments. We really love having you all here with us. It makes hosting this show and running this show, especially after a game like today or tonight at your time, so much more fun. Subscribe to the First of the Floor podcast and the YouTube channel. We have a lot of content coming out on both content streams, particularly in the off season. We really start to flex, and CLNS, our employers, don't know this yet, but I think that's where they're going to start to love us as being part of their network, because we really start to flex like what we're capable of as far as off-season content, live trivia shows. We do deep dives into like obscure Celtics players. A lot of fun there. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Jake, any final takeaways before we wrap this one up?
Let's get out of here, man. Appreciate everybody. Let's keep it rolling. Come on.
Love you guys. Celtics in 6. See ya.